Today we are about to discuss where did the first Catholic Mass take place. So since we already knew the concept of historical interpretation and the importance of multi-perspectivity or multi-perspective into validating and outsourcing different primary sources enable for us to come up with more valid and more reliable interpretation at the end of the study. Well, this particular topic that we are about to discuss today is one of those controversial and conflicting issues that happens in our history. It is said to be that the site of the first Catholic Mass in the Philippines was the popularity of knowing where the first happened in history has been an easy way to trivialize history, because I think if that phenomena or that event that happens in the past is in the connotation of first, maybe it is becoming or became a more significant and can easily be trivialized in history. But since this case study will not focus on the significance of the site of the first Catholic Mass in the Philippines, but rather use it as an historiographical exercise in the utilization of evidence and interpretation in reading historical events. So that is our main purpose for this lesson. We will not be focusing on its significance, but rather we are using this particular document enable for us to exercise historiographical for the utilization of evidence for our interpretation in reading historical events. Butuan has long been believed as the site of the Mass. In fact, this has been the case for 3 centuries, culminating in the erection of the monument in 1872 near Agusan River, which commemorates the expedition's arrival and celebration of Mass on April 8, 1521. The Butuan claim has been claimed on a rather elementary reading of primary sources from the past. So it has been the issue, it has been the problem uh, for almost 3 centuries. The Botuan claim. They have claimed that in this place the first Catholic Mass was held, and also it can be depicted in our elementary uh, books, perhaps, or sources that this place has been the home or the place of the first Catholic Mass in the Philippines. Toward the end of the 19th century and the start of the 20th century, together with the increasing scholarship on the history of the Philippines, a more nuanced reading of available evidence was made, which brought to light more considerations in going against more accepted interpretation of the first Mass in the Philippines, made both by Spanish and Filipino scholars. It must be noted that there are two only primary sources that historians refer in identifying the first Mass. First is the log kept by Francesco Albo, a pilot on one of the Magellan's ship Trinidad. He was one of the 18 survivors in who returned with Sebastian Elcano on the ship Victoria after they circumnavigated the world. The second primary sources was the account of Antonio Pigafetta, Primo Viajejo Interno al Mundo, or the first voyage around the world. Pigafetta, like Albo, was a member of the Magellan's expedition and an eyewitness of the events, particularly of the Mass. So this particular primary sources was the main primary sources used by the historians in able for them to identify and verify where did the first Catholic Mass happen in the Philippines. Moving forward, so let us examine the primary source number one, which is the Albos Lag. Source Diario o Derrotero del Viaje del Magallanes desde El Cabo de Agustín, en Brasil hasta el regreso a España de la Nauta Victoria. Escrito pro Francisco Albo. Or document number 22 in collection de viaje de descubiertos que herdón por Marlos españoles desde Fines del siglo. Medyo nahirapan tayo magbasa ng Spanish. As cited in Miguel A. Bernard, Butuan or Limasawa, the site of first mass in the Philippines, a re-examination of evidence in 1981, Kinaadman, a Journal of Southern Philippines, Volume 3, 1 to 35. This particular source noted that in Albo's account, the location of Masawa fits the location of the island Limasawa at the northern tip of Leyte, 9 degrees 54 north. Also, does not mention the first mass, but only the planting of cross upon the mountain top, from which could be seen three islands to the west and southwest, which also fits the southern end of Limasawa. Primary source number two, the Pigafetta's testimony on the route of Magellan's expedition. So it was based on the Philippine Islands, 1493 to 1898, volume 32 by um, Blair and Robertson. According to this account, it must be pointed out that Albo and Pegapeta's testimonies coincide and corroborate each other. Pegapeta gave more details on what they did during their week-long stay at Masawa. Primary source number three, 7 days in Masawa. Again, this is in the Philippine Islands, 1493 to 1898, by Blair and Robertson. According to this account, using the primary sources available, Jesuit priest Miguel A. Bernard, in his work Butuan or Limasawa, the site of the first mass in the Philippines, a re-examination of evidence lays down the argument that Fegapeta's account, a crucial aspect of Butuan, was not mentioned. When we talk about Butuan, we always noted, or Butuan is noted on its river. Butuan is a riverine settlement situated on the Agusan River. The beach of Masao or Masao is in the delta of the said river. It is crucial omission in this account of river which makes part of the distinct characteristics of Butuan geography that seem to be important to be missed. So when we talk about geography or the physical feature of a certain place, we must be able to recognize its important feature. Like for example, this place of Butuan. So since it is a riverine settlement, as a historian, as my partake, I should be able to include the river as part of its place because the place is notable for that, and that is missing to this account. And it is also indicated in the source used by a Jesuit priest, Miguel A. Bernard. Moving on, it must be pointed out that on later or that later on, after Magellan's death, the survivors of his expedition went to Mindanao and seemingly went to Butuan. In this instance, Pigafetta vividly described a trip in a river. But at this note already happened after Magellan's death. So there was mention of the troops or um, the troops or the voyager that uh, included or that joined Ferdinand Magellan, that they went into a trip to Mindanao. And this particular incident or particular account or particular mention of the place is somehow pertains to Butuan. But when we uh, track down, or we also have the knowledge when this um, First Catholic Mass happens in the Philippines. It is when uh, Ferdinand Magellan was still alive. But in the account of Antonio Pigafetta, they mentioned that they went to Mindanao, particularly at the description is somehow pointing to Butuan, but this trip was done after Magellan's death. So meaning the event was already happened when they went to Butuan or when they went to Mindanao. So again, that's it. Hopefully, we could be able to uh, share some informations regarding to the first Catholic Mass in the Philippines. So thank you so much for attending our session. Thank you for listening and God bless you.